Hi, you guys, and welcome to a very special, not your normal discussion with your host, Queen Pedii.
And Nina.
Yay. So we want to do a very special tribute to the Honorable Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
Yes. So if you guys don't know who he is, here's a beautiful picture of him. Okay. All right. So if you have seen him, awesome. If you know who he is, awesome. But today we're going to give you guys some facts about him. Some of these you may know and some you may not know. But here we go. So Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a civil rights activist who helped in segregation in the United States.
Martin isn't really his given name. He was born Michael King Jr. after his father.
And on top of receiving 2 bachelor's degrees, he received a Doctor of Philosophy at Boston University.
He is the only American other than George Washington whose birthday is nationally celebrated.
Yeah. Okay, so Stevie Wonder wrote a song to honor the late activist, which is the very popular Happy Birthday song. If you are Black, you know that song. You know it. We sing it at every birthday.
Yes.
Happy. Okay, y'all know it.
Another great fact is that it took a while for all 50 states to get on board with honoring this activist. South Carolina was the final state to officially observe the national holiday in 2000. So that's about 22 years ago. Not that far.
Not that far from today. Not at all. Yes. All right.
By the late 1970s, President Jimmy Carter pledged his support of the holiday, but the King Holiday Bill didn't pass in Congress.
Dr. King was always a natural in front of a crowd. Okay, Dr. King's public speaking talents date back to his teenage years when he won an oratory contest in Georgia for speaking on a topic titled The Negro and the Constitution when he was a teen. According to the Martin Luther King Jr. Research and Education Institute at Stanford, in the orientation, he highlighted the contradictory nature of the U.S. Constitution in the context of discrimination.
And of course, as I said earlier, his name was originally Martin. Dr. King's given name was actually Michael after his father, the Reverend Michael King Sr. In 1934, after King Sr. attended an international Baptist conference in Germany, whoa, I didn't know that, where he became inspired by the teachings of the 16th century religious thinker Martin Luther. He changed both his name and his son's name. At the time, Dr. King was already 5 years old, so he remained Mike to his closest friends and family for the rest of his life, according to Time.
Okay, he was passionate about fighting for racial justice from a young age. In the autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. King recounted his first personal experience with racism and segregation. As a child, his white friends suddenly refused to play with him anymore, and he credited this betrayal as the moment he first became interested in fighting against racism.
He was kicked out of the first grade and he ended up skipping 2 more years of school later on. Dr. King enrolled in first grade at age 5, which was too young per the school entry requirement. So his teacher expelled him. Years later, he was able to skip both the 9th and 12th grade because of his academic achievements. He was very smart.
Very smart. Dr. King enrolled in college when he was 15. Instead of finishing the 12th grade and going through a formal high school graduation, Dr. King was accepted into and enrolled at Morehouse College at age 15, where he completed a bachelor's degree in sociology.
His work ethic allowed him to be promoted and become the youngest assistant manager for the Atlantic Journal delivery station at the age of 13.
The Reverend wasn't always steadfast in his faith. Although he would later become a religious leader as a teenager, Dr. King had a very different view of his faith. In his autobiography, he wrote that he wasn't afraid to openly question everything he had been taught, even when it got him into trouble. At the age of 13, I shocked my Sunday school class by denying the bodily resurrection of Jesus, he wrote. Doubts began to spring forth unrelentingly.
Hey, when you got questions, you got
You
it.
gotta question it sometimes. I love it.
Yes. So Dr. Key was inspired to become a minister until college.
Mm.
So he didn't always plan on following his father's footsteps and becoming a minister. But according to the Martin Luther King Jr. Research and Education Institute at Stanford, after he took a Bible course with Dr. George D. Casely,
Kelsey.
he was inspired. Kelsey, he was inspired to use ministry as a medium for social justice and racial reform.
He was valedictorian of his class at Crozer Theological Seminary. Given his rich interest in academia, it makes sense that Dr. King graduated at the top of his class. He was named valedictorian and honored with a fellowship that covered part of his graduate study expenses.
He earned his PhD in systematic theology at Boston University. On top of receiving 2 bachelor degrees, one in psychology from
Sociology.
Morehouse, sociology. Okay. On top of receiving 2 bachelor degrees, one from sociology from Morehouse College and the other in divinity from the Crozer Theological Seminary. King went on to earn a PhD from Boston University in 1955. Okay, making him a doctor of philosophy.
Okay. He was also awarded at least 20 honorary degrees in later years. As if earning 3 degrees as a student wasn't enough, Washington State University reported that Dr. King was awarded honorary doctorates from Howard University, Bard College, Yale, Wesleyan, and many other higher education institutions across the US and the world.
American essay Henry David Thoreau had a profound impact on his civil rights career.
Okay, throughout most of his life, Dr. King was a voracious reader. According to Atlanta Black Star, he enjoyed delving into the works of great philosophers and thinkers like Socrates, Rousseau, and Aristotle.
But of all the great texts that influenced him, the essay Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau was perhaps the most impactful. Go ahead. You go next one.
Okay. According to his autobiography, Dr. King said Thoreau's belief that an individual should not cooperate with an evil system greatly influenced his worldview. It also inspired his belief in his own ability to enact social change at the individual level. While studying at Boston University, Dr. King lamented to his friends that he had yet to meet any woman he seriously liked. He then reached out to his friend Mary Powell, who suggested he meet Coretta Scott.
The couple had their very first interaction over a brief phone call, during which they agreed to meet in person.
Oh, It's so cute. At the time, Scott was studying opera at the New England Conservatory for Music and hoped to be a concert singer.
Dr. King wrote she was a mezzo
Hmm?
soprano, and I'm sure she would have gone onto this area if Baptist preacher had interrupted her life.
Oh,
Um,
babe.
he,
Go ahead.
yes, he called Boston his second home. After spending several of his young adult years in Boston, Dr. King reportedly referred it to his second home. He returned to the New England city several times throughout the rest of his life.
Okay. Well, Dr. King and his wife had an unusual honeymoon. Dr. King married Scott on June 18th, 1953, in Alabama. After enjoying a beautiful ceremony led by King Sr., the couple looked for a place to stay for the night. At the at the time, no hotels in their area welcomed Black couples as guests. So, according to brides.com, the pair spent their first night together at a family friend's house, but he happened to be an undertaker who worked out of his home. So
They went to morgue.
whew, that is very unusual. I would not want to be having my honeymoon
Hey,
whoop-de-doo
you got to get it where you
around some
can.
dead body.
I mean,
Oh,
she probably waited.
we're gonna go to hell for that. We're gonna go to hell.
But I mean, you got to get it where you can. And they probably were waiting till marriage,
Yeah.
or at least she might have been. So he didn't expect to become a civil rights leader. According to the New Yorker, the King family moved from Atlanta to Montgomery, Alabama, when a famous 1956 bus boycott, a citywide protest against racialized segregation on public transit began. At that time, King was only 26 and pretty much unknown in the activist spaces, though he had previously expressed interest in social justice. He originally opposed the boycott because he worried that it was unethical to put people's jobs at risk. But when he realized the ultimate goal behind the protest, he volunteered to use his church's basement as a meeting spot for boycott organizers. During the first meeting, the group elected Dr. King as their president because no one else stood up to take the role. He then wrote his very first public political speech in less than an hour.
Smart man, smart man.
Yeah.
Yes. So he wrote 6 books throughout his life. His collected works include Stride Toward Freedom, Where Do We Go From Here, and Why We Can't Wait, which all document the rise of civil rights movements in the US. Additionally, he published a book of his most requested sermons, a collection of his broadcasted addresses, and an autobiography.
Girl, we should read those books.
Oh, yes,
But it
definitely.
sounds like my year though. Stride toward freedom. Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Why we can't wait?
Why we can't? We
Wow.
can't.
That's my year so
Not
far.
James in the background talking about so
Yep.
wow. He's funny.
Okay.
Right.
He spoke at over 2,500 events and gave hundreds of addresses. Sorry, my cat. He spoke at over 2,500 events and gave hundreds of addresses a year. During his short 12-year career in the public eye, Dr. King delivered an astounding number of public speeches. It's estimated that between his weekly sermons at church and the media appearances, he spoke an average of 450 times per year, according to CNN. Although the famed I Have a Dream speech will always hold a special place in history, it certainly wasn't the only memorable address he delivered during his life.
Yes. So some people believe his last speech foreshadowed his death. So the day before Dr. King was assassinated, he gave a speech in Memphis, Tennessee, to offer support for sanitation workers who had received unfair treatment by their bosses. The goal of this address was to push for union representation, safer working conditions, and living wages. He told the crowd, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. In the aftermath of his death, some people found the language he used to be an eerie indication that he knew his death was imminent.
He won a Grammy Award.
Mm.
One of Dr. King's most controversial addresses went on to receive a high honor. Speech referred to as why I opposed the war in Vietnam and why I am opposed to the war in Vietnam was recorded on vinyl, earned him a post-mortem Grammy for the best spoken word recording in 1970.
I didn't know that actually. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He almost died years before his assassination. According to the Atlanta Journal Constitution, in 1958, a woman approached Dr. King at a book signing event in New York City and stabbed him with a letter opener. The attack resulted in a life-threatening injury close to his heart, but he received prompt emergency medical care and survived. I can remember hearing about that in school. They definitely talk about that at school and stuff like that.
His imprisonment helped JFK get elected. In October 1960, Dr. King was jailed for being part of a sit-in protest in Georgia department store. At the time, Senator John F. Kennedy, JFK, was running against Richard Nixon for the U.S. presidency. According to Time magazine, although Kennedy was a registered Democrat, his views on civil rights and radical racial justice had been unclear. But upon learning on the Reverend's unjust treatment by the police department, a key advisor told Kennedy that his response to the situation would determine his voter turnout in the election. As a result, Kennedy called Scott King and personally offered her his support. Many historians credit this action to the large Black voter turnout in the 1960 election and Kennedy's eventual win. Wow.
So someone else at the motel died on the day of Dr. King's assassination. According to the New York Times, one of the staff members who worked at the hotel where Dr. King was assassinated died shortly after the Reverend did. The motel owner's wife was so traumatized by the sight and sound of his death that it caused her to suffer from a fatal stress-induced heart attack.
Wow.
That, I mean, when you see somebody head blown open, honey, I promise you on that. That's not something you want to see. So I don't blame her. Die now. Die now.
Okay. His political position became more radical over time. Throughout the 1960s, the scope of Dr. King's activist work went beyond civil rights and into economic justice. He increasingly used his platform to advocate for causes like guaranteed annual income and health care. But he also vocalized his strong opposition to the Vietnam War, which caused him to lose a significant amount of American approval. According to Jen M. Jackson, Martin Luther King's future for Teen Vogue.
The most memorable part of his I Have a Dream speech was unplanned. During the 1963 March on Washington, Dr. King delivered a monumental speech that had been well prepared by his speechwriter, Clarence Jones. But the more he spoke in front of that 250,000 person crowd, the more impassioned he grew, which led him to go off course toward the end of the speech. Those famous poetic lines that nearly everyone in the US quote, I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up were improvised.
Hey, I'm glad.
Mhm. Well, there's actually another part to that whole entire thing as to why he really put it out there. Ahura, she told him, tell them about the dream. And that's really why he actually put it out there. But go off.
Hey, he spoke around the world in countries such as India, Ghana, and England.
Mhm.
So, according to History.com, once Dr. King became president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, whew, that's a mouthful, he began traveling all around the world to deliver speeches about the importance of fighting for racial equality. His notable trips include his visit to Ghana, where he celebrated the country's independence, his overnight stint in the UK, where he accepted an honorary degree from the Newcastle University, and his pilgrimage to India, where he met his followers of Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay. He is still the youngest man to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1964, King received this global honor for his unwavering commitment to civil rights, nonviolence, and helping the US government move toward making discrimination unlawful. He was 35 years old then, making him the youngest male recipient to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. But 5 women, Malala Yousafzai, 17 years old, I love her to death, Myred Corrigan, 32, Tawako Karman, 32, Betty Williams, 33, Rigoberta Menchu Tum, that's what I believe it is, 33, received awards at younger ages.
He is honored in cities all over the world. There are currently dozens of statues and monuments honoring Dr. King across the US and the world, including one in England at Westminster Abbey and another in Cuba. And that doesn't include the countless schools and 1,000+ streets named after him across the globe. Actually, for us, they changed part of Virginia Beach Boulevard into Martin Luther King Boulevard.
I'm here for it. I love it. I love it.
It's an honorary name. So it's not like an actual
name,
but it's on
but it's there.
but it's on there.
But it's there. So he had a deep appreciation for gospel and jazz music. Dr. King's religious upbringing greatly influenced his love for music. His mom was even an organist for the church he attended during his childhood. From the time he was a young boy, he sang in a gospel choir and believed in the healing power of music, especially hymns. He later went on to call singers like Mahalia Jackson and Nina Simone for his favorite artists. And according to the international musician, he enjoyed jazz music too. He even traveled to Berlin and delivered the opening address for the 1964 Jazz Festival titled On the Importance of Jazz. Mm. He was swinging, honey.
Oh, yes. Let's go. Dr. King's final conversation involved a simple request. So according to the biographer and historian Taylor Branch, Dr. King's final conversation was with a saxophonist named Ben Branch. The Reverend reportedly asked the musician to play his favorite song, the hymn Precious Lord, Take My Hand, at the event they were both scheduled to attend later that evening. But the doctor never got to hear Branch's rendition of the song. Moments after making this request, he was assassinated on the balcony outside his room at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about this assassination that they do not really put out there, how the government definitely was behind this. And also, one of the people that was standing on the balcony with him made sure to move out the way so that they had a clear shot of Dr. King.
So So the government was actually accused or charged with the death and assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King
Mhm.
Jr.
Yeah,
That's sad.
that is sad. I mean, for what? You know, like of all, like go for the people that are like touching little kids. Do that. Leave the
See,
people that
my
are
thing
just
is,
being peaceful alone.
he was only 39 years old when he died.
Yeah.
Um, so his most famous speech, of course, everybody knows is "I Have a Dream."
Mhm.
Another one is "I've been to the mountaintop." How
Mhm.
long? Not long. It wasn't. Let's see, what else? Uh, uh, so like most people, Martin Luther King had a favorite meal. Um,
Ooh.
let me find out. Uh, People tend to forget about the humanity of the major public uh, figures.
Mhm.
One of his favorite meals consists of a combination plate of fried chicken, black eyed peas,
Mhm.
um, hilla greens, and cornbread, and the Southern style, which is a notable Southern style meal. Um, so it doesn't really, though eating does not connect to his social activities, it certainly does show his more personal side by shedding some light into the man and his private family activities. So
Yes.
because
I bet you
we
Coretta
forget
could
that
make a mean fried chicken, honey. I don't
that's
know if
why
she
like
can make a mean meal, honey. A mean. I'm sorry. Now I'm
um
thinking about food. I'm sorry.
oh, here's another fun one. Martin Luther King was a fan of Star Trek.
Yes.
He's the reason
Yes.
he was the reason why Nichelle Nicholas stayed on the show.
Yes.
And I think she was like the first um black
Black.
woman with the white cast. And then not only that, but she was the first racial inter
Interracial
interracial
relationship.
kiss.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
she got to kiss a white man
well, no, he wasn't white.
on screen. Huh?
Wait, was he white? Did she kiss I thought she
She
kissed
kissed
Bob. She kissed
no
Bob.
Kurt.
Spock
Kurt.
don't kiss nobody. What's wrong with
Spock
you?
don't kiss. He got no
In the
emotions
new movie
like
he
somebody
did.
else I know.
And
Wow.
Oh no, but I'm talking about Nichelle. The
oh, the
um
petty is real. But no, she's the one who Nichelle, yes, Nichelle. She's the one
Nichelle.
that told him to improvise the speech. I couldn't think of her name. That's why I was like,
Um
Ahura. Yeah. Oh yeah, she's very important to him. Very important.
he Martin Luther King was under secret government surveillance, which we now all know. Um the FBI had King's home telephone and the hotel rooms where he stayed bugged during the years 1962 and 1968. They would monitor his calls and conversations, trying to find something that they could blackmail the man with in order to prevent him from bringing about his goal of social equality. These recordings include private conversation and a possible affair. The
Not possible.
government,
It was. I'm sorry. We can be real. This is still not your normal discussion. He was
I
cheating
know,
on Coretta Scott King. That's all I'm gonna say on
but I mean, if you got all those people kind of loving you,
that. Yeah,
you might. Um, okay, this is one that's really I think is kind of important. Martin Luther King was a suicide survivor multiple times.
I did not know
Um,
that.
um, Martin Luther King received a letter from the FBI with the intent of causing him to commit suicide. The letter accused King of his misrepresentation African Americans in his social endeavors, leading a fraudulent movement that would ultimately amount to nothing and being an evil determined in general. Um, he also got like packages and
Mm,
just things to kind of like get him to like try to commit suicide.
yeah,
Um,
didn't know that.
there's I'm gonna send this to you. The letter from the FBI to Martin Luther
Okay,
King.
please do.
A lot of it has been retracted, but there's still enough.
You mean redacted?
Redacted, yeah.
Yes, definitely send that to me.
Oh, so here's another one. So the tradition of naming streets after Martin Luther King was extended beyond the United States. So he got names after him all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's bilingual. They have it bilingual signs to demonstrate the crossover between cultures. So not only was he important for us and our history and civil rights to have equality, but he showed equality everywhere. So I think that's really important. And
It's very important.
So
and
that's
a lot of people
thing.
need to start. That's why I'm upset about people being mad about this critical race theory thing, because the kids of this generation need to know this stuff. Like, if you don't know your past, you are doomed to repeat the mistakes in your future. So that's all I got on that.
But I didn't know that he changed his name.
I think I remember that, but
I think I remember that he changed his name, but I didn't know that his dad did both, and he was fine.
Because I thought in school they said he went to school and then like he learned about Martin Luther. See, even our textbooks was fucking us up. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm good. I'm good. It's okay.
So if you guys have any other inputs or any other questions or comments or more information, hit our comments down below and let us know what you think and what you feel about Martin Luther King Jr. and his day. If you want to do a little thank you to him for starting it off. And we're not there yet.
We're not.
But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yes.
But we're not there yet. So
but
let us know. We're getting there.
We're getting there. We almost there. But yes, thank you guys for hanging with us on MLK
and stay
Day.
Tuned.
Yes,
stay after this for music and a slideshow of his life and pictures and just a little bit of his I Have a Dream speech.
Yes. All right. Well, we will see you guys on Friday.
Bye.